three variables are mood, leadership and management practices, and systems and processes. Okay. Now, when I talk about mood, this is where I lose too many executives. What the hell's that? Are we supposed to play Barry White music? A mood is a predisposition for action. Right? Human beings
Okay.
don't have moods; they have you. We're all living in some kind of mood all the time.
Welcome to Pivoting to Web3 podcast, where experts break down AI and tech shaping our future. I'm Donna, and today's guest has insights you won't want to miss. Let's dive in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Pivoting to Web3 podcast. Today I have Chris Majer, founder and CEO of Human Potential Project and Amazon bestselling author of The Power to Transform. Chris started in 1981 training elite athletes, then spent 3 years with the U.S. Army, including classified project with Special Forces. He brought those performances and principles to Fortune 500 companies like Microsoft, Intel, AT&T, Allianz, and generating $4 billion in documented results. He has the receipts. He's been featured in Time, People, and Esquire, appeared on the Today Show and Charlie Rose. He's also a rugby player who trekked Africa, Alaska, and Amazon. Chris, welcome to the show and tell our audience and yours who you are and how you got into the transformation space.
All right. Well, thanks very much. Happy to be here. I am indeed Chris Majer. I'm the founder of the Human Potential Project, and why it's important is if you are involved in any way in some sort of transformational effort, be it individual or organizational, we need to chat about what makes these things really work and where they more often than not go off the rails and fail.
And when they go off the rails and fail, which is I have been speaking about recently, and I'm very concerned about what is the conversation? What conversation should C-suite really be having to avoid going off the rails? What do you really see to be the major issues for why that happens and transformation is failing?
Good question. Let me see if I can answer this succinctly. We were at this for a number of years. Our first massive transformations were happening inside of AT&T. They were really, really good about trying to measure everything. So we would do these 5-day intensives and a little bit of follow-up, and we took the consumer products division from break even to generating $3 billion in profit over the course of 4 years. So qualifies as a transformation. But as we got out there a little farther, all these things that they measured, the curve, which had been going like this, started going like that. And I thought, whoa, wait a minute. That's not what's supposed to be happening here. Now, it took me, this is embarrassing to say, but it took me about 4 or 5 years to figure this out and
Hmm.
not that many minutes to explain it. So, what I came to see is that there's actually three crucial variables that you have to be managing at the same time if you want to have a successful transformation. And the reason most of them fail is that people are blind to at least one of these, and they don't have the attention span to keep their focus on it long enough to actually embed it into the culture. So the three variables are mood, leadership and management practices, and systems and processes. Now, when I talk about mood, this is where I lose too many executives. What the hell's that? Are we supposed to play Barry White music? Well, wrong mood, but you're kind of on track there. A mood is a predisposition for action. Human beings
Okay.
don't have moods, they have you. We're all living in some kind of mood all the time. And we're blind to them. It's like that alien on your face, right? You can't really notice that it's there because it's just kind of part of you. But the easiest way to understand it is, you know, look at the legendary glass. Is it half empty or half full? Depends on your mood. If you're a mood of ambition or confidence, it's half full. If you're in resignation, resentment, it's half empty. It's the same glass either way, but each of those moods are going to cause a different automaticity in your actions. So the axiom that we use with people is mood is everything. It's not the only thing, but it's everything because if you don't get this right, nothing else you do is going to matter. So put a pin in that. Now, when we start talking about transforming an organization, three variables: mood, leadership and management practices, systems,
Hmm.
and process. Where do 99% of these efforts try and start? Systems and processes. Why?
Hmm.
Well, we live in the delusion that because we can see it and measure it, it must be the thing that matters most. And it's not. So if you're the senior leaders, you of course don't want to look at leadership and management practices because that would be us. So let's take this easy stuff. Now, the thing about it is, you might have a really cool new system, or some great new process, but if you're trying to lay in that over a lingering mood of resignation and resentment in the organization, it's not going to have a chance to stick. And the simple analogy is this: have you ever painted a house, the outside of your house?
No, not me personally, no.
Okay. You know what happens when you paint the house? Besides paint goes on? What's the first thing that people have to do when they start to paint their house?
I find a painter. I don't know. You asked me a question.
Oh,
You asked
gotcha.
me you asked
We're
me a
out of your
question about change
we're out of
management. I
your
can answer that.
out of your focus areas.
Yeah, man.
Right. First thing that happens when you go to paint your house is you have to scrape off the old paint. You gotta get rid of all the old paint because
I
everybody
thought it
knows
was primer or something.
that comes next. If you don't scrape off the old paint and just put primer or anything else on, it all just peels off. It's the same thing here. If you don't
Okay.
sort of scrape out some of this resentment and resignation and put in the new systems and process, it ain't gonna stick. Okay. So the first thing we got to pay attention to is the mood. Then
Okay.
we got to put in place new leadership and management practices. And the key part then now is the time for systems and processes. So people come to us all the time and they say, "Hey, you guys are supposedly the best there is at producing teams. Can you take this division,
Mhm.
department, whatever, and get them to work as a team?" And I'll say, "Well, I can produce the short term effect of that, but tell me about your compensation system. It only rewards individual effort." Well, then you can forget about having a team in the long run because your systems and processes don't support these new behaviors that you're trying to install. And that's going to produce the gap there. It's going to produce cynicism, which is the negative mood that kills all these efforts. Now, when we did these things and we did them well and successfully, our programs didn't last for 2 or 3 days. They were like 9 months because that's how long it takes to put in place new practices. The results were extraordinary. So, the answer to your question, most of these things fail because they're not aware of the three variables. They don't keep their attention on it long enough. And eventually, the C suite wants to try and delegate the transformation to HR, which usually kills it. So, I'll stop there and let you digest that.
Well, we're pretty much in the same space. You call it mood, I call it the people side. You got the people processes, and then, of course, you have the management, of course. But at the end of the day, the mood or mindset, would that be almost the same thing? The mindset, I call it
For this
mindset.
conversation, we can call
It's
them the
still
same
on the
thing.
people side. That is some of the issues. It's not usually the technology. It's usually
No.
what I call the people, the culture. There's other issues that you need to fix before the technology then comes in, and
Mhm.
whoever's going to be accountable for the adoption. It's not going to happen on its own. So, when you've worked with some companies, can you tell us or paint a picture of a time on what was happening in the company and what a real transformation looks like?
Well, yeah, we got all kinds of examples. Let me give you two different ones. So I'll come back to AT&T in a minute. A number of years ago, Allianz Life. We're now in Minneapolis. Brand new CEO, young guy, just got the job, inherited a somewhat dysfunctional senior team. He had us come in and sort them out, and then he looked and he goes, "Well, here's our bigger challenge. We're growing at about 20% a year, year over year, which is fantastic on the one hand. But the culture can't sustain that level of growth. A merger of 2 insurance companies, we got old insurance company mentality, not so much an entrepreneurial mentality, and we're just gonna get overwhelmed here if we don't change the culture.
Mhm.
So he engaged us to do that, a and knowing what we know about how to do it, we were really clear, he's the customer, we coordinate with HR, but you, the CEO, are the customer. You're the ones that we're making promises to. So we spent, it's about 16 months working through 2,000 people inside that organization. And the results were pretty extraordinary. They spent a total of about $10 million on us over that period of time. And after it was all said and done, Mark was at a shareholder meeting. One of these activist shareholders jumps up and goes, "What's this line item here about this human potential stuff? Why would you spend $10 million on that touchy feely stuff?"
Mhm.
And he said, "Well, we did in fact spend $10 million on it and documented a $685 million return. Any more
Wow.
questions?" Yeah. That's the level at which we play. All of our programs, big programs, come with a financial promise. You get it back at least 10x what you spend on us inside the time frame of the engagement, not at some distant point in the future. Or we keep working with you till you do. And by our standards, X is kind of like the low bar. But
Mhm.
because people aren't used to seeing results like that, it shows up as, magic or extraordinary. And then my big problem is going out talking to people in a selling conversation. When we talk about results like that, they don't believe me. I'm like, you think I'm lying to you? For God's sakes.
So for those listening, how long is your engagement? How long does a project or something like that last for those who really don't know and
Well,
know they need to do something and do it with somebody that knows what they're doing?
as I said earlier, when we did our quote flagship program, it lasts 9 months.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Okay.
the way it works is we have a series of conferences, 7 or 8 weeks apart. And then what makes the magic for us is not the conferences or the unique material, but the process. So let's make up numbers. So you give me 100, 200 people, you're the CEO, I don't, whatever. And before we get there, your job is to look at this roster that you're giving me and break this group into little teams of 5 or 6. You can choose them any way you want.
Mm.
So they can be people who already work together and they want to work better, or you want to cross fertilize things. Totally up to you. And you're going to give each of these teams a project. And the project has to meet three conditions of satisfaction. One, it's crucial to the company's strategy, not some made up make work BS.
Mm.
Two, it has to generate a measurable financial impact. So it's either going to bring in new revenue or drive costs out of the business. And three, it's got to be complex enough that you think it's going to take the better part of a year to get it done. Okay. Our promise is using our methods, you'll either get it done faster than you thought was possible, or it will produce more financial return than you thought was possible. And that's how we fulfilled that promise. So at Columbia House, they gave us a project. Well, what are we doing here? We need to start a new business unit. Okay, good. Have you done this before? Oh yeah, lots of times. What's your best time, concept to launch? 18 months. So that's my benchmark. Using our methods, they went concept to launch in 7 months. They saved 11 months of burn on the project team and the consultants they were using and got
Mhm.
11 months of early unanticipated revenue. That one project covered the cost of our entire engagement. The other 9 were gravy that enabled their CFO to declare at the end of everything. He was funny. He says, you guys came in here with this 10x promise, and I thought it was just more consulting BS. So I ran some numbers last night, and you didn't hit 10x. And I'm sitting there going, ruh-roh.
Mhm.
My calculations were a little different. He says, "Nah, I quit counting at about 60.
Oh, wonderful.
So you now occupy the status of the only consultant I'll ever recommend to anybody."
Well, that's wonderful. So when people are listening to you right now and they are in the middle of a project, some of them are nervous wreck. They're not sure what they're doing, why they're doing it, if they're doing it appropriately. What should the elements of the conversation look like when they come into something like this on a major project within the organization? And they really need to come into that AI space or really enhance some of their processes. What should that conversation look like? What are they really doing wrong from the beginning?
Well,
What do you wanna recommend them
let's
think
say
of
let
5
let
things to
yeah,
do right to get on a good foot
let's go
besides
back.
call you?
Yeah, let's go back and start at the beginning. So we ask a fundamental question. For the sake of what are we doing this project?
Mhm.
Okay. What is it we're trying to accomplish? What's the problem we're working to solve here? Okay. And we teach a methodology called action cycles, and we won't go into all the details of it, but the fundamental part of action cycles is clarity. So, who's the customer for this?
Mm.
And often it'll be some division, some department, and we're going, no. Divisions, departments, teams are not customers, individuals are. To whom are we making the promise that this project is going to get complete? I want a specific name. Who's the customer? Okay. And then we have what we call the holder. Who's the person that holds the promise that this is going to get taken care of? That doesn't mean he or she's going to do all the work, just means they're going to hold the
Who's the
promise.
guy?
Who's going to make this work, right? And then where we get lots of mess are what are the conditions of satisfaction? What do we have to accomplish such that you, the customer, will declare that you were satisfied that we got the job done? And we need clarity about that. And we can't settle for, well, I'll know it when I see it or do your best or any of that kind of stuff. the bureaucratic blather. And then importantly is the final thing is buy when, right? So this is it's seemingly simple stuff, but this is where everything falls apart. You go to these meetings and they'll talk, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do this. And then they'll go on to the next topic. We go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Who's the who that's going to do it? And by when? Well, get it done as soon as you can. Okay, so watch. So if I'm making a request of you to get something done and you tell me you'll get it done as soon as you can, what does that mean to me? What do I assume? Since I made the request, I'm assuming that once we leave
Mhm.
here, you're going to go get right on it, right? Your assumption is, I got 10 things already on my plate, sport. You're number 11, so be grateful that you're on my to-do list, but you're at the bottom. I got, all these other things ahead of you. So there's an obvious already problem right there. This is where distrust gets built. It's because misaligned expectations, poor management of promises. And you can pretty much take any breakdown in a company apart to that simple little phenomenon.
Okay. So for those listening and they're looking at their projects, they're looking at the conversation, you've given some insight on how you bring it to life and your methodologies. What does governance have to do with it that they need to think about? Are there any regulations? How do you go about handling that when you bring in technology and there's governance issues or governance has not been resolved? How do you know the organization is really ready?
Well, when you're talking about governance as pertains to technology, this is now a whole different realm since it's
Hmm.
all very fluid these days. So, what you do is back to an action cycle methodology, it's provisional conditions of satisfaction. Here's what we know right now about the regulatory landscape. We can project it's going to go in a couple ways. We can't sit here and game plan for all of them, but what we're going to do is one foot in front of the other till we bump up against whatever the next stop point is, and then we can resolve that. But we don't sit back and wait for everything to just kind of happen because by the time you do that, you're too late. Right? Then you're playing catch up. And that's not a game that you can win at.
Hmm. So if someone was really moving into implementation, need a culture change, is that the type of client that you're looking for?
Well,
Who's your client that might be listening today?
Well, it's a good question. I'm chuckling because right now today you find the companies fall into two buckets,
Okay.
and they both are problematic from our point of view. So there's the company that's doing really great. Well, we're doing so great. Why in the heck would we need to change anything? Look at how cool
Mhm.
we are. Look at how great we are. Yeah, go away. We're doing great. We're on a roll, baby. Yeah. And then there's the company who's in trouble, and their conversation is, "Oh boy, yeah, we're really in a mess, but we can't afford to spend any money on anything
Mhm.
like this anymore." I always give them the locker room speech at that point in time. So, who's your favorite football team?
I don't do football really.
Oh, come
Not even the Buffalo Bills. I gave up. They just
on.
always lose. I'm not part of the Bills mafia.
I can understand that. So, I don't even know who owns the Buffalo Bills. I don't know. I'm in Seattle, so
The Pagulas right now.
okay. So
Well,
let's
they just
assume it just happened, their season's over. Let's come into the locker room after the last game, and they go, "All right, guys, look, that was a heartbreaker, but you gave it your best shot. We're really proud of you. It's a tremendous season. The dilemma is you lost that one, and we're not gonna get to the Super Bowl. Understandable,
Mhm.
but we built all of our financial plans on getting to the Super Bowl, so we're not gonna get that revenue. So what that means is we can't afford training camp next year." So what we want you to do is go out, get more fit on your own. We're going to have a draft. So take these new guys out, play golf with them, have some beer and pizza, really make them feel part of the team. And then come in time for the first preseason game next year. And if we do better next year, then we can really splurge and spend the money on training camp. That's a conversation that will never happen, right?
Right.
Right. Pro football teams double down.
We plan, baby.
Yeah. Well, and in business, we do just the opposite. Sales are flagging, so we gotta stop spending money on learning how to do better. What?
Mhm.
So we kinda doom ourselves in this loop, right? And, "Oh, we're flying high now. We can't possibly why would we distract ourselves?" 'Cause only a moron thinks that that state that you're in right now is gonna last forever. This is part of my rant here about leadership in corporate America today. We don't have very many leaders left. We've got caretakers and bureaucrats who've come up through the finance side, and they got all their charts and maps, but the charts and financials can't see most of the stuff that really matters in an organization. It's all backward looking financial results that has no connection to how those results get generated.
So you walked right into my next question. What should an executive and someone who's in leadership be looking for or being prepared for in the future? What's coming?
Boy.
I
Well,
mean, you've seen
yeah,
40, 45 years.
yeah,
We can
yeah.
kind of tell what's coming.
Well, COVID was our last dramatic major disruption, right? Totally destroyed some
Hmm.
businesses, enhanced others. We're still, in my opinion, living in the hangover from that. We're just now trying to get people kind of back in the office and doing that stuff because we realized, yeah, it's fine every once in a while to stay at home and work all day in your pajamas, but the company suffers from that. They don't like to talk about it out loud, but all the CEOs in their private moments are very nervous because innovation has largely stopped in American businesses. Because innovation isn't something you can mandate, isn't something that you can track with your financials. It happens in those hallway conversations, lunch conversations, after work beer conversations. Hey, what about? Yeah, maybe. Oh, that'd be cool. Those aren't happening. They don't happen on Zoom because they require that little human spark, right, of energy that's only possible when the two of us are right there face to face juicing on something.
So is that all part of the culture? The culture has
Absolutely.
changed in it. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah.
to go there. Let's stay in the organizational
Yeah.
culture. So the culture's changed. The contact has changed. As my old manager used to say, you're no longer belly to belly, having the beer or working and seeing each
Mhm.
other eyeball to eyeball. Would you say that's a lot of what's gone wrong now?
That's a lot of what's holding us back. Yeah. So, full disclosure here, COVID essentially killed my business because everything we did was live, and I deploy teams of 8 or 9 to go do these programs. And we have, 100, 200 people together in big, conference rooms. And the energy was electric and it was transformational. Nobody seems too inclined to do that much anymore. Right.
Are
And
they doing it? Are they doing it virtually?
well, they're trying but it doesn't work for the same reason. You and me on Zoom is nice, but it's not the same thing as you
It's
and
not
me.
the same thing if we met.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So multiply that times a couple hundred and then, the quadratic
Or a
habita.
few thousand in pharmaceutical, that would be a few thousand.
Yeah. So there you go. And now the new big thing, of course, is AI. And everybody's either very excited or very terrified of AI. And I think we need a little historical perspective on this.
What would that be?
Well, you and I are not quite old enough to remember this, but we certainly know it. If you go back to the dominant media in our country and the rest of the world was radio. You learned everything. People huddled around the radio to get the
That's
news,
true.
to listen to the ball game, to see
Hmm.
what's going on in the war, whatever it was. Late 40s, 48, 49. There was a radio host, I forgot his name. He was making about $2 million a year in the late 40s. That's tremendous amount of money. By 1952, he was off the air. What happened?
I don't know. Somewhere around there, you got the TV.
There you go. TV shows up.
Yeah.
Now, here you go. Pop quiz. What's the very first thing that was broadcast on TV?
Wasn't it still a news show, some type of news? Or
Radio
was or
show.
was it or was yeah, okay, it was the
Very
radio
first
show on
thing
television.
the very
Okay,
first thing they put on
that's
TV was
true.
radio shows, right? Because in the old days, radio shows were done with, actors and sound effects
That's
and all
true.
that in a studio. They didn't understand, they didn't have a grasp for what the potential for this new medium was, so they just did what they already knew how to do.
Not until Ed Sullivan.
Well, came along, and then we're thinking, "Wow, TV, boy, that changed everything." But it took 10, 15 years before we kinda settled into what's really possible here and started telling
Mhm.
stories crafted especially for TV and so forth and so on.
Right.
And then the internet happens. Oh, this is the greatest, the latest, it's the end of technological development is the internet. Same thing. What's the very first thing that was out on the internet?
I
Catalog.
don't what was
Catalog.
what oh, the catalog? Okay,
Yeah, people didn't want to keep printing these massive things. It was ridiculously
that's
expensive.
true.
So they'd
Mhm.
send them over the internet. Now, it's true that porn was the second thing, but that's not the
That's not part of our
that's
conversation.
not where we're going. So yeah, it was the very same thing. We already do what we know how to do. Now we got AI. So AI is seriously disruptive, but at the same time, we need to get really clear. What is it good at? It's really good at doing mechanical, repetitive things so far, right? It can help you with your writing, depending on your point of view, but it can do, process forms, that kind of stuff. It can take all of the, I don't mean it to be demeaning, but the kind of mindless work out of organizations. And yes, there will be some displacement as lesser skilled people find that there's not a demand for them. Or that's going to be a problem. But at the same time, I think you'll find that AI 5 years from now, we won't even recognize. It'll be just like the early days of this. They'll look back at today, like what we're doing, as just like the early days of television. We're going to need to find ways to reskill or repurpose a lot of people. Nobody's giving that any thought. Nobody's making any plans. That's a problem. And in organizations, everybody's terrified they're going to lose their job. Well, some people will. That's just the nature of the beast.
So what should people be doing?
They should be looking to reskill, enhance their skills to learn. They've got to be committed learners to develop new capacities to take action in the world that AI can't.
Do you think they'll learn with AI versus what they've been doing in the past? Because it seems like everybody stopped learning.
Well, now you're on to my, favorite soapbox.
Tell me your soapbox.
Here's the dilemma. We've been sold bill of goods about learning. We swallowed it, hook, line, and sinker. If you ask most people, what does learning mean? They will tell you, not using these words, but it's the acquisition of information, theories, models, beliefs, and ideas, all for the sake of understanding. Because to understand is to know. That might be true in an academic environment, but not out in the rest of the world. We got started working with athletes and then soldiers, right? People who are under constant pressure to perform. And we would teach them all sorts of stuff. And we quickly came to realize understanding was the booby prize. These people aren't dumb, they could grasp it, but that doesn't mean you can do it. What matters is what can you do, not what do you understand. Our product is what we call embodied competence. Embody means you can take the new action without having to stop, think about it, look it up in a book. And competence is simply the capacity to consistently produce the desired result. No amount of understanding ever produced competence in anything. There's only one way that you get competence, and that's via practice. Why is that? Because while the mind understands, and understanding can occur in an instant, in the end, it's the body that learns. Your mind understands, but it's your body that learns, and the body only learns one way. That's through practice, period. There is no shortcut. So people go, "Oh, okay, well, I guess I can see that, in sports. You don't get better at golf by reading Tiger Woods' book, right? You get
Mhm.
better at golf by practicing, and
Practice.
if you're really serious, working with a coach. I I ask our executive clients all the time, right? So let's assume for the sake of conversation, all of you are golfers, that you're deeply committed to getting better at golf. What are you going to do? And you'll invariably hear, go to the range and practice. So you want to get better at being bad. And they look at me like, huh? Well, you already said your game was insufficient. So why would you want to go practice being insufficient? That doesn't make any sense. And you think you're gonna teach yourself how to get better? Well, if that was true, you would have been better by now, right? So no, if you're committed to learn, you're gonna go hire a coach, right? Because the coach is a different observer of you. He or she has distinctions and practices that you don't. So what happens? You go to the coach, you show up there, and she's gonna say, "All right, let me see you take some shots." So you'll bang out a few shots. Then the coach will say, "Okay, let's do this. Change your grip just a little bit, right? Move your feet a little bit this way. Stand up a little straighter. Now take some shots." What happens to those first few shots? They're crap. Why? It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. I don't like the way it feels. Right, because you're doing something new. No learning occurs inside your comfort zone. You got to get to be a little uncomfortable. You got to be a little unsettled first. Now, if the coach wasn't there, what would 99% of the people do? Go back to doing it the way they already knew how to do
Hmm.
because it worked better. This is why most adults don't ever learn anything. We're more committed to being comfortable, to looking good, than we are to actually learning. So in golf, back to my golf example, if you keep working with the coach over time, your game's going to get better. But it isn't going to happen in an instant. You're going to go through an awkward learning phase. That's true for anything. That's why when we're teaching new leadership practices, doesn't as I say to people, here's the big workbook for the program. You can take the book, go copy it, share it with anybody you like. I don't care. Won't do you one bit of good. That's not where it happens. Where it happens, remember when I talked about those little project teams? It happens in that environment where you're actually bumping into your real work situations, working to do these new practices. And I tell them, first time you try the new practices, they're probably not going to work, just like the golf. That's okay. Don't be dissuaded. That's part of the process. We're starting off with stuff that's simple and easy and you can't do any damage with. But
So
that's how
what is your
you learn.
so what is your final words to those that are listening to you today in regards to transformation and being prepared and ready?
Well, we teach a practice called centering, which is all about unifying your mind and body so you can actually be present in the moment. It's the most difficult thing for human beings to do, by the way. So we get to be present in the moment, which then means you're not susceptible to the waves of emotion that run through organizations and through you. And this position is we use this old samurai adage, expect nothing, be ready for anything. Expect nothing, be ready for anything. So if you've got your mind fixated on AI, the boogeyman, well, that's probably what you're going to be generating, not because you're magically making it happen, but because you're so focused on it, that's all you're going to see. Broaden the horizon, take a breath, look around and go, okay, so what do I see that I might need to learn so that 5 years from now, I'm indispensable? And it's probably not coding.
Exactly. Especially since you got vibe coding and
Yeah,
everything else going on.
exactly.
So how does somebody connect with you that wants to talk to you or work with you or reach out?
Well, I think they should call you and, you can hook them right up with me.
That's possible.
Yeah.
I have some guests that prefer me to do the
No,
vetting
you could go
first.
to, humanpotentialproject.com. That's our website. Everything you wanna know and more is there. I do speaking engagements at chrismajer.com, and we're just getting ready to launch 2 new online programs. One's a leadership program, and the other is how you take effective action, how to mobilize people and resources to get things done. It is astonishing to me, after all these years, that people really still don't know how to get things done, and they're mystified when projects are off track, over budget, all this kind of stuff, because they got all their charts and graphs and everything, and it's like, there's a science to it. It's not
There
s
is. When the train is leaving the station, it's leaving the station.
there you go. That's about it.
Okay.
If you
Well,
can't find me that way, then you're not trying hard enough.
or everybody can contact Donna Mitchell at Pivoting to
There
Web
you
3
go.
podcast, and I will definitely get you to Chris Major, and we're shaping tomorrow together. And thank you for listening, and thank you
Hey,
for coming.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for checking in with Pivoting to Web3 podcast, Enterprise Digital Transformation. This is Donna Mitchell. If you'd like to connect with me, kindly hit up Connect with Donna Mitchell, and I'll be glad to chat with you. Take care and have a wonderful day.